Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Monday, July 29th. Today is day 297 since October 7th. There was a lot that happened over the weekend. There was an escalation between Hezbollah and the Israeli military. Over the weekend, what was believed to be an Iranian missile from Hezbollah struck Israeli-controlled territory in an area called Majd al-Shams in the Golan Heights, where 12 people were killed, mostly children and youth. Hezbollah denied responsibility, and today, Monday, Gavara Ibrahim was an 11-year-old child who was killed in the Majd al-Shams rocket attack. He was laid to rest after his death was confirmed yesterday. He had initially been reported missing. Ibrahim's family was a part of that. There were funerals. I'll talk a bit about that when I give more updates about today. But the town of Majd al-Shams, I wanted to talk about this, is in the Golan Heights. That's occupied territory. President Trump, when he was in office in the White House, was the first U.S. president to acknowledge Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights. So when they say Israeli-controlled territory, many in the world don't believe that the territory is legitimately a part of Israel proper, even though Israel views it as such. The population there is mostly Druze. Many of them self-identify as Syrian. A lot of the community there says they just want to live at peace. But I wanted you to know 20,000 Druze live in the Golan Heights, including in the town hit by the rocket. Some still consider themselves Syrian. Many refuse Israeli passports, but a minority have actually become citizens of the state of Israel. And Jewish Israelis began populating the territory after the occupation began in 1967. And more than 20,000 Jews also live in the area. Now, roughly 100,000 people in Lebanon and 60,000 people in Israel have been displaced. That's on the northern border of Israel and the southern border of Lebanon. There are scores of schools and health centers that have been shut down completely. This has been since October. And according to the New York Times, the total number of people killed since October in Lebanon has been 460. Most of those militants, but more than 100 of them were civilians. That includes 12 children, 21 health workers, according to the United Nations and Lebanon's health ministry. The fighting has also killed 22 Israeli soldiers and 24 Israeli civilians, according to the Israeli government. But unlike in Gaza, both sides have largely avoided escalations that have led to a significant or overwhelming loss of life. And so there's a significant concern that what happened this weekend could be the tipping point. We've been talking about this for months. Will this become a broader Middle East war? And so according to the Washington Post, they said the scale of bloodshed on Saturday has provided one of the strongest tests to that calculus since October. And so there's a concern about escalations, and I'll talk about that more. Israel announced retaliation strikes yesterday. They struck Hezbollah targets inside of Lebanon and in the south. The military said it targeted weapons areas and militant infrastructure overnight. The defense minister in Israel, Gallant, said he mourned the victims of the Majd al-Shams attack and that all people living in the area who suffer on account of Hezbollah. He said, "We will ensure Hezbollah, the proxy of Iran, pays a price for this loss. Hezbollah will pay a heavy price that it has not paid thus far." He said, "I wish to be finished." Oh, another quote that came from this article was from Fawzi Abu Jaber, who's 72, who said he lived his whole life in this area, Majd al-Shams. He said, "I want to be finished with this tragedy, this crazy war." He said, "The United States must back peace, not war, not the Israeli government, which does not want peace, not in Lebanon, not in Gaza, and not in the Middle East." That was Fawzi Abu Jaber of the community that was just, it's Israeli-controlled community, but was believed to have been attacked by Hezbollah. While that was going on, there was a deadly strike in central Gaza where local authorities said at least 30 Palestinians were killed. Israel bombed a school that was sheltering displaced people. The IDF said it was targeting a Hamas command. I mean, that's what we hear whenever there's an attack in Gaza. And it does not, according to international law, justify the death of so many civilians. I just repeat that over and over and over again. This was a control center, according to the IDF, of a Hamas command that was inside of the Khadijah school compound. Reuters reported yesterday that Turkey is considering, quote, entering Israel. President Erdogan said that Turkey might enter Israel as it has done in the past with Libya and Nagorno-Karabakh. That's between Azerbaijan and Armenia, though he did not spell out what type of intervention he was suggesting. But this is another sign that things are escalating. Erdogan has been a critic of Israel's offensive in Gaza and has been discussing the war. This was in a speech where he was praising his country's defense industry. We must be very strong. So Israel can't do these ridiculous things to Palestine. Just like when we entered Karabakh, just like when we entered Libya, we might do similar things to them, he said. There's no reason we can't do this. We must be strong so we can take these steps. That was in a televised address. Yesterday, thousands of people attended the funerals of the 12 children and teens who were killed over the weekend. Prime Minister Netanyahu and Gallant, as I mentioned, said that Hezbollah would pay a heavy price. Hezbollah reportedly cleared out key sites in anticipation of an Israeli response. And today, the local regional council in Upper Galilee warned residents to evacuate as well, to be alert and attentive and to reduce gatherings and movement. The U.S. Embassy in Lebanon urged U.S. citizens to shelter in place or be prepared to for long periods of time because commercial flights could cease operations due to escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. The German government called on nationals to urgently leave Lebanon. Lufthansa, Air France, Swiss, Eurowings announced they would suspend flights until August 5th to Lebanon. Lufthansa and Austrian Airlines also announced that they would cancel 2 evening flights to Tel Aviv early this week, Monday and Tuesday. We also heard from the news that Hezbollah is transporting precision missiles in preparation for a confrontation with Israel. That was at the Associated Press. Other sources told the Lebanese Daily News that Hezbollah had not yet decided how to respond to a potential Israeli reprisal, adding that it would be decided depending on the scope of the attack. About 200 residents of Majd al-Shams, the community where all these children had just died, were protesting Prime Minister Netanyahu during his visit when he went to the town. And they greeted him with shouts and chants of "Get out" and "Murderer." They said he's an enemy to all of us, and now he remembers the Golan, clearly indicating that the Golan does not see themselves or does not see Netanyahu favorably. According to the White House spokesperson, John Kirby, Israel has every right to respond to Hezbollah after the lethal rocket strike, although the U.S. does not believe it needs to result in an escalation. The Iranian president, Pezeshkian, told French President Macron any possible Israeli attack by Lebanon would have serious consequences. And 2 people were killed in an Israeli strike this morning on a vehicle and a motorcycle that were identified as members of Hezbollah. 3 other people were wounded in the strike, including a child. Meanwhile, today, there's been not much progress, it seems, on the ceasefire hostage negotiations. The Israeli government is exploring ideas for preventing armed Gazan combatants from moving north of Gaza from the south. This is across that corridor in the middle of Gaza. This is an attempt to prevent hostage negotiations from falling apart while satisfying Netanyahu's insistence on incorporating such a provision. Negotiations continued with the Mossad chief Barnea. He was visiting Rome yesterday. He met for about 90 minutes with officials from Qatar and Egypt and provided a document on Israel's response to Hamas's proposal. In addition to preventing the movement of armed combatants into North Gaza, Israel also is demanding that they have supervision over the Philadelphia corridor. This is typically controlled by Egypt. This is actually built into the Egyptian and Israeli peace agreement. This is near the Rafah border crossing. Israel is saying they need to remain control of that as well in order to prevent arms smuggled across the border. These are all sticking points of why we don't yet have a hostage release deal. Prime Minister Netanyahu is delaying that deal and has set conditions that depart from the proposal laid out from President Biden. That was from a Hamas spokesperson. The Lebanese news reported that Israel's new demands include Israeli forces remaining in Gaza, not just in the border areas, and in order to allow quick responses to sudden incidents. These demands they also demand to receive a list of living hostages to be released from Hamas captivity, as well as international guarantees that would allow Israel to resume the war after the first deal of the parties, if the parties, after the first phase of the deal. That was always a sticking point where Hamas kept saying no deal unless there's an assured permanent ceasefire on the horizon. The Saudi news reported that sources in Hamas said Israel strongly opposes the release of 100 prisoners that were sentenced to life imprisonment. These are Palestinian prisoners. Hamas would like for them to be released into the West Bank or Gaza. Israel opposes it, so that's another sticking point. There also was a major incident between Israeli police officers at the Sde Taiman detention facility, and Israeli military police detained soldiers on suspicion of abusing a Palestinian detainee. According to the security source, the detainee was taken to the hospital. They had severe injuries to an intimate body part, injuries that left him without the ability to walk. A security source said the confrontation developed between the military police personnel and the soldiers at the Sde Taiman facility, who refused to evacuate. The soldiers refused to evacuate and barricaded themselves in the facility, and they reportedly pepper sprayed the military police officers who arrived to detain the suspect. After reports of the soldiers' arrest, far-right Knesset members, IDF reservists and civilians arrived at the facility to protest. Far-right lawmaker Sukkot, a member of the finance minister Smotrich's party, was filmed leading a group of protesters to the gate at the base, confronting the soldiers guarding the gate. These are Israeli soldiers and Israeli police at this detention center in the Negev. Smotrich was filmed forcing his way through. A stream of protesters rushed the gate, chanting slogans against the detention of soldiers. Former War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz said there is no doubt that the Nukba detainees, those are the detainees of the military of Hamas, vile murderers, do not deserve any special conditions, and yet the military must act while adhering to values and rules of law. Anarchy must not be allowed. The IDF is investigating suspicions of violation of international law by troops who blew up a main water reserve. This happened. So much has happened in Gaza. So the IDF is investigating troops, their own troops, who blew up a main water reserve that serves Rafah. This was on video. It was posted on social media. A soldier posted the video footage saying that the destruction of the Tel Sultan water reserve was in honor of Shabbat. And I just wanted to call attention to the mayor of Rafah, Ahmed Al-Safi, said the blowing up of the drinking water by the IDF is worsening the collective punishment against civilians, and that he called for international intervention to stop the Israeli aggression. This is further evidence of what we've been talking about. Oxfam came out with that report talking about Israel using water as a weapon of war. Now, Israel is saying senior officers didn't approve it. The Oxfam report says that there are incidents every few days where water facilities are being destroyed. 94% of the water sources in Gaza have plummeted, according to that report. The death toll in Gaza, as of the most recent numbers, is 39,363 Palestinians killed, and those wounded is approaching 91,000. In the West Bank, individuals set fire to a vehicle in the Palestinian city of Hebron and spray painted October 7th revenge on it. The UK is considering announcing, this is hugely significant, the UK under the new government is considering stopping defense exports to Israel, but a final decision on the issue has not yet been made. If this happens, this would be quite significant. This is under the new British Prime Minister Starmer, who told Herzog, the president of Israel, there must be an immediate step towards ceasefire so hostages can be released and more humanitarian aid can be allowed into Gaza for those who have such desperate need. He said he was reiterated his ongoing support for Israel's right to self-defense in accordance with international law. And finally, we have news on Leanne Nasser, who's been in administrative detention for more than the past 4 months. We just received news that her charges have been extended without trial for an additional 4 months. Leanne was a student at Bears 8 University. She's a member of the Anglican Diocese of Jerusalem. We've been ardently calling for her release. Administrative detention means no trial, no charges, no due process according to law, which is completely unjust. So we've been calling for Leanne's release alongside the Episcopal Church here in the United States. So Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy as we continue in our efforts towards peace.